Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and in a world of shiny objects and so many cool and powerful AI tools, but not exactly the easiest to navigate, and lots of question marks over what we should be paying attention to, what we should be automating, what we should be relying on the technical side for, as well as what matters on the business front, I am convinced that we have got one of the best of guests and fellow entrepreneurs for you here today to help answer all of those questions and so many more. Let me introduce you to him. He's incredibly talented on both the business and technical side. His name is Doby Lanete. To tell you a bit about Dobby, he's the founder of DobotAI, which is an automation and AI systems agency focused on helping service businesses scale through intelligent infrastructure. He specializes in identifying operational gaps inside growing companies and translating high-level business strategy into clean, scalable, technical systems. So if you feel like you're missing any of those ingredients, you are in for such a treat. With a rare ability to speak both business and technical, Dobby bridges the communication divide that often slows execution. He works closely with founders and leadership teams to design CRM architectures, automation frameworks, and AI-powered workflows that reduce manual work, increase visibility, and most importantly, unlock sustainable growth, not just any growth. So this is going to be a fun one. Let's dive straight into my interview with Doby Lanete. All right, Dobby, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Dobby, I'm so excited to geek out about all these cool things that you get to do on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure a lot of your work and your business actually feels like play, but before we dive straight into that stuff, let's put the spotlight on you. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Dobby? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so I started off just being a computer science major. I graduated from Texas A&M University, and kind of after graduating with that major, I was looking for jobs, and I really couldn't find anything at that point. So what I really did, I just started off doing nothing. So I kind of just sat around doing nothing all day. And from there, I ended up I found this YouTube video once. And this YouTube video was just like a 6-hour guide of how to make money through automations. And at the time, I was a very big gamer, so I played so much. And I was like, if I can have so much fun doing, games and building all these things inside of there, why don't I just try to make some money off of it? Yeah, so from that course, I just started learning more and more, and I was able to land my first client in 6 days. And from there, that was just like opened my eyes to the whole world of growing a business and really started to make money online. So I started off freelancing for about 5 months, and from there, I hired my first person to actually help me build out some of the systems that I was originally building myself. And just from there, 3 months later, we scaled and built a lot. We have like 10 clients now just building out automation systems in their backends.
Yes, I love that overview, Dobby. I'm going to call this out because I think we need to celebrate it on the air, is the fact that when you had this idea and when you realized all the skills that you have, you didn't go into a hole and build a business for 6 months and focus on a business website and business cards and a logo and all of that, which we can all get distracted. It's very easy to get into that stuff. You had the spoiler alert right there in your backstory, which is you just went out and got a client. And I know a lot of people's ears are going to perk up about getting your first client within 6 days. Take us back to that story. I find that so many first client stories are always super insightful.
Yeah, for sure. So when I originally started, I had to pick the business name, and I didn't even have a website at the time, but I was like, I have to make money somehow. And like, there's nothing I was at zero at the point. I was like $0 a month. There's just no way that I can do it. Like, there's no risk pretty much. And my company name, DobotAI, was actually the first thing on ChatGPT. So I typed like a prompt. I said, here's my name. Can you give me a couple names for like an AI automations company? 5 minutes later, I could just pick the first name, and here we are. So I kind of just rushed that process. And from there, I hopped on Upwork, which is a freelancing site, and I just applied to as many as possible. And I ended up landing a client within 6 days. He ended up becoming one of my mentors now. And quite honestly, I didn't have an automations background when I first applied for like those freelancing systems. And I just watched YouTube. I watched YouTube for a week straight of how to build out these systems, and I just sold myself on those freelancing platforms, and I ended up just delivering the work like kind of impromptu.
Yeah, I love that, especially because that's the cool thing is, especially in service businesses, I'm going to call that out. A lot of people often waver and they wonder, what business model should I have? A service-based business, I mean, you've already alluded to it, even from zero, bang, you can start to scale your client roster, you can start to scale your team, and it's all about just providing those services. But Dobby, hearing you talk about automation services, I know that a lot of business owners look at their own business and think, I don't even know what can be automized or automated. And I feel like that's part of the cool thing about your process is you start with a free automation audit and roadmap. Take us there, because I'm sure you've had this conversation with a lot of business owners who feel that way. What does it look like for you to peel back the layers and look behind the curtains and reveal to them some ways they can automate?
Yeah. So originally, the whole free automation process kind of showed up when I found like the service we deliver is very custom and very specific. So in order to really determine what we can provide as a business, I needed to first understand what was behind the curtain. So, but what I found as well is that pulling back behind the curtain actually provided so much free value that it made clients even more interested, simply because they didn't have to pay for some fee to get just a simple understanding of what is actually behind, like what's running behind their business. So we would hop in calls and I'd kind of just map out the marketing, sales, and fulfillment processes. And just from there, the big automation blockages tends to be a poor CRM infrastructure, a lead capture system that duplicates and you don't have like one place of just truth for your sales data, as well as there's like lead nurture where you want to send emails like point of contact. You want to make sure you're sending emails to people who book calls within these different agencies that I work with. And those systems are quite simple to build out, but they're so high leverage that it's really important that you have them set up. Yeah. Additionally, sorry.
No, go ahead, Dobby, because I already know I'm so excited to go deeper in CRM, but complete that.
Yeah, so the very last one is like operations infrastructure. So no matter what business is being run, there always needs to be some sort of project management system, whether it's a service business or a product business. There has to be a way to track all that information, and I love building those out too.
Yeah, and that's fun because to me, it sounds like you will go as far as I'm very happy to go on the air, which is calling those things non-negotiables in all of our businesses. I feel like every business, we all have technology and we all have softwares that power our business, but hearing CRM and project management software, absolute non-negotiables across the board. And obviously they come in 5,000 different flavors. I mean, take your pick, Asana, ClickUp, Notion, there's so many different ones out there. And Dobby, we won't necessarily talk about specific tools, although if you have favorites, I am not shy about recommending some of those, but talk to us about what those tools look like inside of businesses, because I know how many business owners especially tune into this podcast and they think to themselves, I don't have a CRM. What is the function of my CRM? Why is that so important? Why are Dobby and Brian talking about a CRM and a project management tool? What do those look like? What's the importance there?
Yeah, for sure. So a CRM is a customer relationship management system. And pretty much the core reason why you need a CRM in your business is to track all of your sales data. You need to have a place where you can store all of your leads, and as well as have visibility within your pipeline of which leads are having a call booked, who is most likely to close, and when they do close, what is their churn rates, what is the statistics behind all of that. It's so incredibly important to have a place that is 100% truth, that shows your entire sales data, because when you have your sales data, you can make actionable you can make actionable decisions that provide real results. Instead of like making, I probably have this many clients and they're paying me this much, you're actually able to see the numbers and the KPIs to make real decisions based off data instead of feelings.
Yeah, and take us there. Same regards to project management software, because I named just a few of them. I'm a sucker for Notion, but what does that look like inside real life businesses?
Yeah, for sure. For project management, that you would be surprised how many businesses I've seen having 100, 150 clients without a project management system. A project management system is incredibly important because what it does is that it allows all your clients within your business, all of your customers within your business to have the same customer experience. It makes sure that there are no communication channels that are being lost. It makes sure that all deliverables are on time. And it really depends on what service you're delivering, but these project management systems can get incredibly complex depending on how many moving pieces there are.
Dobby, hearing the way you talk about these things and knowing how much you enjoy digging into this work, both from a technical perspective, but as well as from the business perspective, what I often think about is how many entrepreneurs will check the box. They'll have these tools. They'll say, and I hear it all the time because I'm always preaching about Notion. At this point, I should just become an affiliate for Notion. But oftentimes when I talk about Notion, people will say, oh, I signed up for a Notion account, and they're not actually using it. Now, obviously, you and I can talk about the technical side of the automation work that you do, but on the business front, what do those conversations look like with your clients of you emphasizing and integrating it into their actual workflow so that they don't just have it, but they actually use it? How much of an uphill battle can that be, and what's the way to overcome that?
Yeah, for sure. So from the clients that I've spoken to and worked with, and we've done over 100 automation audits for different businesses, we tend to find that they have the software, but utilizing the software always has more elements to it. So this is kind of where the integration part is really important. So like getting the actual software and having it set up properly. But there's still so many areas of friction whenever you use these pieces. So for example, Notion that you were mentioning, we can connect a lot of the back-end endpoints for Notion that would allow us to send, for example, team reminders, for a very simple example. Let's say inside of your Notion board, you have this many upcoming tasks. Instead of needing to necessarily check the Notion board and make sure that everybody's on the same page, we can send out automated messages that informs everybody of their current tasks. Same thing as well. Let's say you recently onboarded a client. We can build out a system that when the client is onboarded, it is automatically added to your Notion board. So there's no more of that manual labor that connects, oh, someone onboarded a client, I need to go into the Notion board, update it, make sure it's accurate. Because what happens is humans make mistakes. Technology, it makes mistakes too, but you can always see it within the logs. So you kind of can tell whenever something is lost. So it really just cleans up the pipeline.
Yeah, I love that. And really, the simplicity that you bring to the table, even when you're talking about all these things, I really appreciate, because when you talk about tools talking to each other, that is obviously somewhere where a lot of our businesses have kind of the Frankenstein tech stack where they don't necessarily talk to each other. And I know that we've all got so many different options out there. We've got Zapier, we've got N8N, now we've got OpenClaw that you and I could geek out about on the air together. But there's so many different options when you're sitting down with business owners. And obviously, I'm going to interject this into the conversation. Obviously, every business owner is also cost conscious as they ask themselves, how many different tools am I going to need? How do you help them navigate that? Because there are so many different choices, all with different price tags, all with different use cases. Where do you even begin that conversation with them?
Yeah. So tends to be whenever I start working with clients, their current systems, I tend to just integrate with what they already have. A lot of times when we try moving around softwares, it's just unnecessary. But really, when they start to scale, because that's the whole purpose of building out these systems, right? Systems unlock the bottle cap or the bottleneck that's preventing businesses from scaling. You can either hire or you can implement systems. Systems last forever. Hires you have to train, and there's a lot of complications when it comes to there. But unless they've reached a new bottleneck where scale has reached a point that their original systems that allowed them to scale reaches a tipping point, that's when we would recommend to upgrade their systems, because there are different systems that are built for SMBs, mid-market, and enterprise. And as you move, the complexity grows, and building out those systems become more and more complex.
Let's talk about how you find those, because people hearing you talk about bottlenecks probably, I mean, I know I feel this way talking to you, and I would imagine a lot of listeners feel the same way of, well, I almost want to just have somebody independent look at my business and start to identify those. How do those leap out at you? Because when you walk into a business, you have to make sense of their operations, their industry, their customer base, their tech stack. There's so many different things. How do you identify, and I'll add an additional layer of prioritize. How do you identify and prioritize what those biggest bottlenecks are, where those system failures are? How do you even begin to put together that plan of attack?
I think my favorite question, and these are always the clients that I love working with the most, is, do you have any idea? Because a lot of times I can always come into a business and provide my technical expertise, but no one knows your business as much as yourself, right? So a lot of times some business owners have some technical understanding and they're like, yeah, I know that I'm spending 5 hours every single week working on this onboarding process and it is eating up so much of my time. Then what we do is we say, okay, perfect. Then it sounds like you already know your problem. I'd love to solve this for you. So that takes the highest priority. But after that, this is where we have a conversation where I kind of just ask questions that peel back the curtain, where we kind of just say, okay, so now that we have understood the main bottlenecks that you think are the most important, let's talk about every single piece of the pipeline. So this is where I'd pull up my audit document, and it kind of just shows every single box of a traditional business pipeline that goes through marketing, sales, fulfillment, and then internal communications. And I would just go box by box. It's like, okay, so you have your marketing channel here. How are you getting leads in? Oh, it's from this. Have you tried building out a system here that will save you this much time? So for example, if you're having ads and you're running ads, how are you moving those ads without duplication and getting all the data proper from your funnel? How are you transferring that to your CRM? Oh, you don't have a system like that? Perfect. That actually might be more important and the most important thing to build for your business that will have the highest ROI. There's that phrase, lowest hanging fruit. The highest priority will always be the lowest hanging fruit. That way we can see the immediate return before we move on to the things that will be more successful long term.
And Dobby, when I hear you talk about building things, I think that 2026, what a time to be alive, because it's never been easier than before to build things. And I think historically, if you and I were having this conversation, let's say 10 years ago, people would think, well, gosh, either I'm going to have to sign up for software or I'm going to have some manual fix, because it wasn't so easy 10 years ago. It also wasn't so affordable 10 years ago to build custom things for our businesses. When you talk about these builds, how much of it is proprietary type builds that you and your team are now able to put inside of your client-based businesses versus leveraging existing tools? I mean, there's an abundance of amazing SaaS products these days. Where do you draw that line of, hey, let's look for what's in the marketplace versus let's figure out something proprietary to your business?
The majority of what we do is we utilize the tools that have been already made for infrastructure. So for example, we won't tend to build a brand new CRM or a brand new project management system. But the actual connections, that's completely proprietary. So we go into their systems and we can either use another tool, like for example, you were mentioning NAN or Zapier. Mainly we use NAN or Make.com, but we build those on their accounts. But for a certain group of clients, like for example, let's say you're surpassing 5 million, 10 million ARR, we tend to build out systems just utilizing agents or building out systems that are just completely custom coded. That way, it's more specific for the client. But when it comes to clients that are doing less than 5 million ARR, sometimes they just really need a system that allows them to streamline the process as much as possible so they can scale even quicker. So that's kind of where I would go towards that direction.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer, especially because I love the fact that you brought agents into this conversation, because Dobby, as the host of this show, I'm going to call out that for 3 years now, I feel like everyone's been tossing out the term of agentic AI as if it's this mystical thing. And fortunately, here in Q1 2026, agents have arrived in so many different shapes and sizes and different options for those agents. In your world, what do agents look like? And for people who have never experienced the magic of agents, give us some real life use cases and examples of what can AI agents do these days.
Yeah. So I can go two ways. I can explain the personal side of agents and I can explain what we built out for businesses. Personally, I would have 3 agents running on my computer at all times. This would be just Claude Code and VS Code, pretty much with as much context as possible. And what I would do is that I'd use it for writing YouTube scripts. I'd use it to write out a new VSL or copywriting, or maybe even editing a video. So one of my most recent case studies, I edited that video simply by asking my agent to edit the video. It went frame by frame and found all the pictures of that, generated me a thumbnail, and I don't know what I would do without it. And then on the client side of things like project management, right? There's this term called MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. This kind of exposes all of the API and backend connections to any of the apps that we're currently using. One good example is a project management system that we built out for a client where we just connect to their Slack MCP. And that agent, you can ask it any question and it just pulls information from all of their client chats. So now their project manager just needs to ask, okay, what are the most important things to do today? instead of needing to go a couple hours clicking through every single channel and responding to messages. He could just ask with one prompt.
Yeah, I love that, especially because I feel like I keep saying this, but it's especially relevant in today's conversation, is that tools are evolving every single week now. I feel like all the LLM companies are releasing really cool updates, capabilities. You've talked about agents. Agents have come a long way in the past 6 months even, and so it's really cool to see all of that. Dobby, for business owners who are listening to this and saying, gosh, you guys, do I now need to go learn N8N? Do I now need to check out make.com? Do I now need to do all of these things? What's your advice and guidance for business owners who do see the noise, and every time they log into LinkedIn, they hear about this earth-shattering technology and advancement? What's your advice for people who are thinking, how the heck do I stay on top of all of this? How much of it is noise? How much of it is a shiny object? And what should I actually be thinking about and paying attention to?
I think that this world of technology is a multiplier. Right. So if you have a business that's already working and it's already kind of integrating with technology, the endpoints are incredibly simple. You can integrate AI to solve your fulfillment problems. You can integrate AI to better organize your sales data, or take even sales transcripts and analyze them. Really, implementing technology in a current working system is one of the highest leverage things you could do. But what I've seen as well is that, especially when business owners are starting out, let's say they're starting out their own agency, or they're building their first product, or trying to land their first client, that is the danger. Because I do think that if you're at 1 or 0 clients, or you're just really trying to start growth of your business, focusing too much on AI will only stifle it.
Which is so interesting to hear your perspective on that, because as someone I started my first business all the way back in 2008, and Dobby, back then I had to do everything by hand. I started on WordPress back then. There weren't many plugins, there weren't many themes. I had to manually learn PHP and CSS and HTML and JavaScript and SQL and all of those things. And it's obviously a very different world now. Sometimes I smile and I think to myself, how much easier would it have been to start that business in 2026? That said, let's leave the world of builds and automations for a second and just talk the classical LLM models. Let's talk about using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, or pick your poison there. With regards to the LLMs, as a fellow entrepreneur, what are some of those clever ways that you've tapped into the power of those LLMs, either personally, professionally, to get your business off the ground? Because there are a lot of things that it can be a thought partner for, so I always love hearing what others are using it for.
Yeah, for sure. ChatGPT has been kind of my go-to since the beginning. I mainly use it just for general use, mainly because it was one of the most powerful ones at the time. Like, I would use the ChatGPT 3 and 4 models a lot. But as over the last 2 months, it really started to shift. Tools like Manus, which was acquired by Meta, that tool is incredibly powerful for deep research, deep analysis. It can build out, oh my goodness, it could do so much. It could build out web pages. It could build out whatever you want. It's more on the pricey side, but if you haven't tried it, Manus can do so much, as well as Claude Code. Claude, paired up with agents, allows you to build such amazing things, because now you could pretty much do whatever a normal programmer can do, just utilizing AI. So you can code whatever system, whatever website you want, any landing page, you could build that out. Like, I also started off learning HTML and CSS and all of that, and oh my goodness, now I don't even need to know it.
Yeah, it's so funny because, truth be told, we literally don't need to. If we do understand it, it does help when it comes to being dangerous enough to understand what's going on, and also to prompt a little bit better. But truth be told, here in 2026, anyone can do anything. And so along those lines, Dobby, clearly you and I love AI. Clearly you and I love automation and technology. What's your response? I love interjecting this into conversations because I know it's a real thought out there, and I think part of it is generational. I hear what my parents and their generation thinks about potentially replacing humans, potentially replacing jobs, potentially replacing all of these things. I just want to call this out, Dobby, before I kick the microphone back to you, is that as soon as our pre-production team came across your work and your agency, something really stood out to us. And it's you sitting down with your clients. It's you sitting down with people that you work with and showcasing their businesses, their case studies of things that you guys have built out for and with them. And to me, what really stands out is even though you're an AI and automation agency, an operations agency, you have such a strong human element in the way that you're operating. So all of that, obviously I'm pre-positioning this stuff, but all of that is to say that it seems to me like you have a really hopeful view of how automation brings people together. What's your retort to people who are concerned about what the future might look like with replacement of jobs, with loss of work, all of that?
Yeah, I do think that there's a place where there is a lot more, or we're in a place where there's a lot more, like technology will continue to grow. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. This whole idea has been also on my mind. It does worry me to an extent. And that is why in my business and what we actually deliver is that we want to make sure that there is no loss of this human context, right? With how technology works, the only way that we can actually differentiate and continue being ourselves is by doing the one thing that we do best, which is connecting with others. And no matter what topic we're talking about, whether it be operations or sales or trying to just generally grow a business, the real thing that we have is just continuing our communication with each other, no matter if the AI continues to grow.
Yeah, and that said, I really appreciate that point, because I feel like there's this trap. I'm definitely going to call it a trap or an illusion that a lot of us convince ourselves that, oh, my business is different. AI can't do that in my business. Oh, you can't automate this workflow because my business is different. And really, you've seen behind the scenes of so many different types of businesses. And as someone who interviews a lot of different founders, I see how frequently these patterns pop up. Everyone who tells me, oh, my business is different, they then say something that I've heard 300 other times before. So Dobby, for the listeners out there who are thinking, oh, I'm not sure how relevant this stuff is because my business is high touch, or my business happens in a local geographic area. I've got a local coffee shop, for example. What's your answer there? Because you obviously see those universal patterns through your work.
Yeah. Every single business requires automations. I do believe that every single time you're trying to scale, there will always be aspects of manual labor. I pinpointed the top 7. So this will sit around CRM infrastructure, lead capture, lead nurture. Every single business has leads. Every single business is either selling to a customer or delivering a service to that customer. And the real idea of, oh, my business is different, mainly falls under that fulfillment process. Some businesses can't be fulfilled through AI, at least not yet. The technology is advancing so quickly, but it always can be assisted. So there are different mechanisms that we can work around, custom mechanisms that allows us to assist, whether it be 10% of the work all the way to 95% of the work. It really does depend. But AI and automations really do reduce that manual labor no matter what business you're in.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously today we've only talked about the software side of the world, things that happen on computers. But gosh, probably 6 months from now, or certainly a year or 18 months from now, when you and I have this conversation again, I'm sure that hardware is going to catch up, and there's going to be really cool things happening on the robot front. There's going to be cool things happening with regards to AI assistants that, please end the days of Siri and Alexa, because those are certainly not AI assistants. Dobby, anything on the hardware front that excites you, or trends or waves that you can see coming down the line?
Honestly, the driverless cars is something I've already seen it grow so incredibly fast over the last couple of years. I personally like the idea of driverless cars, mainly because I hate driving. But on that side of manufacturing and building out these robots that have the ability to, for example, do filing, like manual filing. I saw a couple of videos about that. It's just incredible. But I am hopeful that it does reach that point, less of, the job market, but more of when that technology gets to that point, it actually unlocks a lot more for human progression.
Yeah, it's so true. And as a Tesla driver of almost 10 years now, Dobby, you no longer need to drive your own car. That is such a cool place that we already are here. It sounds like something from the future, but last time I checked my FSD stats, I'm at 96% of the time. I'm not touching the steering wheel or the pedals. So really cool thoughts that the future is already here. So Dobby, it's been so much fun going into all these different topics, and I'm grateful for how much you've let me go into any direction. Listeners know how unscripted this is, but I'm going to put you on the spot one last time because I always ask this at the end of every episode, and that is, with all the things we've talked about today, and especially with your entrepreneurial hat on, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, and knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing you want to leave them with today?
I think, especially when I was first starting my business, the only way to actually get started is to just get started. There's a lot of places, especially in this world where like AI is getting so powerful, there's a lot of places where you can get holed up trying to find the most perfect solution. Especially like with AI, like I said, you could just keep searching up ideas, keep searching the right market, keep creating these ideas without you actually needing to put that manual thought. Just start. If you start, you will fail or you will succeed, but every single time you fail, you will only increase your chances of succeeding in the future.
Yes, so well said. And listeners, I know that that is not advice that we always want, but it is always advice that we need. So Dobby, super grateful for you sharing that advice with our worldwide audience. Also very excited for them to check out your website. I often say that success leaves clues, and you and I talking about something, yeah, that's cool, that's fun. But seeing your work in action, seeing the brand that you've built, seeing the clients that you've helped. Also, I'm going to call this out because honestly, we don't see this as much anymore about all those videos on your website. There are human faces behind your brand. Yeah. There's clients that are talking about the cool things that you've done inside their businesses. So huge kudos to you and your team. And for listeners who want to check all that stuff out, drop some links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
So you could check out my website at DobotAI.com. That is DOBOTAI.com. As well as you could check out my LinkedIn. We post a bunch of stuff from there. There's a lot of good information. As well as on the website, there is a link to the Automation Advantage. That is my little teaching course on a school community where we kind of just go over all the different builds that we do out for people and kind of just explain more in depth of what every single build and what their benefits are to any business.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're dropping all those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. So if you're driving, have no fear. You don't have to remember anything. You can always click right on through from straight down below. Otherwise, Dobby, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.